That morning, the entire office watched in stunned silence as a single father stood at the entrance of the company, still wearing a torn jacket stained with blood, desperately trying to explain why he had arrived late. Before he could catch his breath, the CEO handed him a termination letter in front of everyone. None of them knew that only an hour earlier, he had been kneeling on a crowded sidewalk, using his own hands to keep an elderly woman alive after a terrible accident. The greatest act of kindness anyone would perform that day had just cost him his job. If you believe kindness should never be punished, and that forgiveness, hope, and second chances can change lives, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to our channel so our community can continue spreading stories that remind us of the goodness still left in this world. Colton Reeves had spent the last 7 years balancing two impossible responsibilities. Without complaint. During the day, he worked as a maintenance supervisor for one of the city's largest architectural firms. Every paycheck mattered because every dollar helped raise his 8-year-old daughter, Hazel, after his wife had passed away from an aggressive illness that emptied both their savings and their hearts. Every morning followed the same careful rhythm. Breakfast was prepared before sunrise, Hazel's school bag was checked twice, lunches were packed with handwritten notes, and then Colton hurried toward work hoping another day would pass without unexpected trouble. His life looked ordinary from the outside, yet every hour demanded strength few people ever noticed. The company where Colton worked was led by Maren Whitlock, one of the youngest CEOs in the industry. Brilliant, disciplined, and admired by investors, she believed success depended on absolute consistency. Her calendar was planned months in advance, every meeting started exactly on time, and every employee understood that punctuality reflected commitment. She had inherited both the company and its culture from her late father, who had taught her that excuses weakened organizations. Although respected, Maren often appeared emotionally distant. Most employees feared disappointing her more than losing important clients. That morning had begun differently for everyone without anyone realizing it. As Colton drove toward work, traffic suddenly slowed beside a busy intersection. People were stepping out of their vehicles, pointing toward a woman lying beside the crosswalk after being struck by a speeding delivery van whose driver had lost control while avoiding another car. Some people filmed the accident. Others froze in panic. Colton did not hesitate. He parked, rushed across the road, and immediately began helping. Years earlier, while caring for his late wife through countless medical emergencies, he had completed first aid courses simply because he wanted to protect the people he loved. Those forgotten lessons returned instantly. He checked the woman's breathing, controlled severe bleeding with his jacket, spoke calmly to keep her conscious, and remained beside her until emergency responders finally arrived. The paramedics later admitted that without someone acting so quickly, the woman likely would not have survived the massive blood loss. As the ambulance prepared to leave, Colton quietly slipped away after giving a short statement to police. His hands trembled from exhaustion. Blood stained his sleeves, his shirt, and even his shoes. Looking at the dashboard clock, his heart sank. He was nearly an hour late. He drove straight to work without stopping to change clothes because he believed honesty would be enough. Surely anyone would understand after hearing what had happened. Instead, the receptionist looked horrified at his appearance. Word quickly spread across the building before he even reached his department. Employees whispered as they watched him walk toward the executive offices, hoping to explain himself before beginning work. Unfortunately, Maren had already received reports that an important supervisor had failed to arrive before a major client inspection. The inspection involved millions of dollars in future contracts, and tension filled every floor of the building. Seeing Colton arrive so late, disheveled and covered in blood without knowing the reason, Maren's frustration boiled over. She believed leadership required consistency above sympathy. Without asking for an explanation, she informed him that repeated lateness, although rare, could not be tolerated on such an important day. Human Resources had already prepared termination documents after assuming he had abandoned his responsibilities during the firm's most critical morning of the year. Colton tried to explain, but the words barely escaped through his exhausted breathing. His voice shook with disbelief more than anger. He accepted the envelope quietly because arguing had never been part of his character. Looking around the silent lobby, he realized nobody wanted to challenge the CEO's decision. Embarrassed beyond words, he thanked those who had supported him over the years, picked up the small box containing family photographs from his locker, and walked out of the building with tears he refused to let anyone see. At that very moment, several miles away, doctors rushed an elderly woman into emergency surgery after stabilizing her condition. She carried no identification except a damaged bracelet with an emergency contact number. Hospital staff finally reached her daughter. That daughter was Maren Whitlock. The phone call shattered her carefully controlled morning. She abandoned every meeting and hurried toward the hospital believing she might lose the only parent she had left. When she arrived, the trauma surgeon met her with surprising optimism. The injuries had been devastating, but someone at the accident scene had reacted immediately. The stranger's actions had prevented catastrophic blood loss before paramedics arrived. Maren asked who that stranger was. The doctor handed her a police report. The name printed there made the room feel suddenly smaller. Colton Reeves, the very employee she had fired less than an hour earlier. The realization struck harder than any business failure she had ever experienced. Images flooded her mind, the blood on his clothing, the exhaustion in his face, the unfinished explanation she had never allowed him to finish. Every detail she had dismissed suddenly formed a painful truth. He had not been careless. He had been saving her mother's life. For the first time in years, Maren questioned the principles she had built her leadership around. Rules created order, but compassion created trust. Somehow, in protecting one, she had sacrificed the other. She immediately left the hospital searching for Colton. Finding him proved difficult. He had turned off his phone because he could no longer afford another expensive repair after dropping it during the rescue. Eventually, one of his co-workers remembered that Colton often spent difficult afternoons volunteering at a neighborhood food pantry whenever he had unexpected free time. Rather than sitting at home worrying, helping others had always been his way of surviving grief. Maren found him there, organizing donated groceries with the same quiet humility he showed everywhere else. He looked surprised to see her, but there was no bitterness in his eyes. Only exhaustion remained. She apologized before saying anything else. Not the brief, formal apology expected from executives, but the sincere apology of someone who recognized the weight of her mistake. She admitted she had judged him without listening, valued procedure over humanity, and forgotten that every employee carried unseen burdens beyond the office walls. Colton accepted her words politely, yet forgiveness did not erase consequences. He had already lost his income. Bills remained unpaid. Hazel still needed school supplies, food, and stability. Kind words alone could not restore everything that had happened. That truth affected Maren more deeply than any criticism ever could. Over the following days, she personally reviewed every policy within the company. She discovered countless examples where employees had hidden family emergencies because they feared punishment. People had become afraid of honesty. Productivity looked impressive on reports, but trust had quietly disappeared. Maren publicly admitted her mistake before every department. She reinstated Colton with full back pay, restored every lost benefit, and introduced emergency family leave supported by flexible attendance policies that encouraged communication instead of fear. Managers received training emphasizing that leadership required listening before judging. Performance still mattered, but compassion would never again be considered weakness. Colton returned to work not because he needed recognition but because providing for Hazel remained his greatest responsibility. His co-workers welcomed him with genuine respect. Many privately thanked him for changing the company without ever intending to. His quiet courage had accomplished what countless meetings never had. Meanwhile, Maren visited her recovering mother every afternoon. Doctors repeatedly reminded them that minutes had separated life from death. During those visits, her mother spoke often about the stranger whose calm voice had convinced her to keep fighting despite overwhelming pain. Although memory remained blurry, she remembered kindness more clearly than fear. Weeks later, after rehabilitation allowed her to walk independently again, Maren's mother insisted on meeting Colton and Hazel. The meeting became one of those rare moments when gratitude needed no dramatic speeches. Hazel shyly handed the elderly woman a handmade card decorated with bright flowers and the words, "Dad says helping people is always worth it." Tears quietly filled every eye in the room. The older woman embraced both father and daughter with a warmth that felt like family rather than strangers connected by tragedy. She thanked Colton not only for saving her life but also for reminding everyone around them that ordinary people carry extraordinary courage every single day. Months passed, and the company gradually transformed. Employee turnover dropped dramatically. Collaboration improved. Clients noticed a healthier workplace culture. Surprisingly, productivity increased because people no longer worked through fear but through loyalty and respect. Marin often reflected on the morning that almost defined her career for the wrong reason. She realized the strongest leaders were not those who never made mistakes. They were those willing to admit them, repair the damage, and become better because of them. Colton never viewed himself as a hero. He still woke before sunrise, packed Hazel's lunches, attended school events whenever possible, and quietly helped strangers whenever opportunities appeared. His greatest pride came not from awards or recognition but from knowing his daughter was growing into someone who believed kindness mattered even when nobody was watching. Hazel carried that lesson into every classroom, every friendship, and every challenge she faced. She learned that true strength was measured by compassion shown during inconvenient moments, because kindness given only when convenient required very little courage. Years later, employees still remembered the story of the man who arrived late wearing blood-stained clothes and walked away unemployed before anyone knew the truth. They also remembered the CEO who found the humility to correct her greatest mistake and reshape an entire company because one ordinary father had reminded her what leadership truly meant. That if this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Before you go, leave a meaningful comment telling us whether you believe kindness should always come before judgment, or share a moment when someone gave you a second chance that changed your life. Sometimes the greatest heroes never wear uniforms, receive awards, or appear on television. Sometimes they simply arrive late, carrying the evidence that they chose another human life over their own convenience. And sometimes, one act of quiet compassion has the power to heal far more than a single wounded heart. It can transform families, workplaces, and entire communities, proving that forgiveness, humility, and hope remain stronger than pride, and that every new sunrise offers another chance to become the person we were always capable of being.